Hey guys, just checking I'm live on Facebook as well. Facebook, please don't let me down. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back in another video, and welcome to part 2, the second part of going to be uncomfortable there. Sorry, the second part of whatever this is, dyslexia and entrepreneurship. Sorry, probably not working. So talking about dyslexic business people and whatnot. Hope you enjoy it, and as ever, please let me know what you think and if you've learned anything new about dyslexia. I know I said before in December that I want to focus on like dyslexics, dyspraxics, dyscalculics, dysgraphics, and disabled people generally as well, due to my use of alliterations. And I mentioned my story before about like someone saying I work with the D's, i.e. dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and that kind of thing. And she said not the A's like autism and ADHD, but in November I want to focus more on neurodiversity more generally. But anyway, so welcome to part 2, and I'll try and get to a point. So yeah, for these series of videos, I'm hoping to focus on like dyslexia and entrepreneurship, enterprise, and that kind of thing. So yeah, please let me know what you think. What do you know about dyslexia? What would you like to know about dyslexia? And do these videos inspire you if you're dyslexic? And do they inspire non-dyslexics to learn more about dyslexia? I hope to change the perception of dyslexia and that kind of thing. And something I was going to say, but I'm going to include it in the list rather than the intro. So I'm going to try and crack on with it. So these are points number 11 to 20, and here goes. Maybe I will say it before point number 11. Anyway, actually I'll say it point number 11. Sorry. So number 11. I love to bring together organisations like Made by Dyslexia, the Yale Centre for Dyslexia and Creativity, the Dyslexia Advantage, the Child Mind Institute, Understood, and all possible dyslexic individuals and organisations, similar with possibly with dyscalculia, dyscalculics, dyspraxics, dysgraphics, and whatnot. But in this case, focusing more on dyslexia, because I've heard a bit more about dyslexia and entrepreneurship and that kind of thing. But maybe looking at like how some people with dyscalculia, for instance, could run a business by working together, networking with dyslexics some of them could be better at the math side of things, for instance, using AI apps and other forms of tech, software and whatnot, tech generally to support such, or whatever. I'd also love to look into how to get more people from diverse backgrounds, including dyslexics, dyscalculics, dyspraxics, dysgraphics and whatnot, and disabled people maybe even, into tech fields, thinking about things that begin with T, as it's Tuesday. I was imagining people might say there's some words that people might think that begin with T to describe me, but yeah, fair enough. Anyway, as ever, please let me know what you think, as say in the comments and that kind of thing, and how can we change the perception of dyslexia and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd love to bring those organisations together and those individuals together and see what we could achieve together. And also I wanted to say in point number 11, I think of changes and all that kind of thing. I'd love to find out more about like dyslexic inventors, especially including in history, and in fact probably even more so now and in the future, contemporary and ones in the future. How can we help more dyslexics in the future? So dyslexic inventors and their inventions and how they've changed humanity, how they've benefited humanity, how they've benefited society, and that kind of thing. Basically, same thing, I guess. And dyslexic entrepreneurs and how they've changed society, what their ideas and inventions and actions and businesses and whatnot have done to change society. And I'd love to raise a profile of dyslexic entrepreneurs, like talk about what are some dyslexic owned businesses, so other dyslexic people might even want to go and buy from those businesses. We could buy from each other, perhaps, maybe in many cases support each other and that kind of thing. I'd also love to support those around the world, but I might come to that in more details. But yeah, I'm going to move on to point number 12. So yeah, on the point of like raising the profile of dyslexic entrepreneurs and that kind of thing, for instance, and all those other words we're talking about, to make it simpler, I'm just going to say dyslexic entrepreneurs in this case, and inventors. And I'd love to interview them on my channel and videos, and even on their channel, like I did with Alicia. But I would love to ask them questions about their business and their projects and what they're working on, enterprise and that kind of thing, so they can sell and promote their products, which hopefully will benefit their businesses, also market their inventions. So basically it's free advertising and marketing, I guess, for dyslexic owned businesses. And again, similar to those other groups, dyscalculics, dyspraxics, dysgraphics, and disabled people more generally as well, physically and mentally disabled people as well. But also, I'd love to know. I'm just trying to remember. I would love, as I say, I'd love for us to network together and that kind of thing, and to promote projects, promote each other's projects, and basically support each other, whether that's in business or whatever other areas, as I mentioned about YouTube, TikTok, and whatnot, and how they maybe also YouTube and TikTok could promote like dyslexic content creators on their platforms, so they could have a special selection of dyslexic YouTubers, just like they do for like Black History Month with the Black community. They could have like dyslexic YouTube channels you can check out and that kind of thing. Funny enough, I just realized, I knew I was wearing my Inter Milan t-shirt, but I've realised I'm wearing my cap, and my brother who's moved to Australia got me, and the t-shirt my mum got me from Milan as well. That's a side note. But yeah, I suppose they're kind of matching for once, but or whatever. But yeah, sorry. So what I also wanted to talk about, what we could, if we network together, what we could learn from and about each other, and what we could teach and train each other in. Not me, but other dyslexics who actually have experience of achieving success or whatever in business or whatever field, those who are top of their field, teaching and training others. I suppose that's what mentorship involves, which I talk about on Mondays, like mentorship Mondays. But to be a bit more professional, perhaps I could say mentorship. I suppose it's probably a daily thing, but it could be like they meet up once a week with their mentors and go through like, what have you worked on, how to set goals, how to organise time, or whatever it is that mentorship involves, which to me is like teaching and training as far as I'm aware. But people who actually are more professional, people who are mentors and do so professionally, so to speak, will probably know, will certainly know a lot more than me, which is not saying much, but I'm just an ideas person, as I say. But hopefully we can inspire and motivate each other and talk about research on dyslexia and entrepreneurship and continued research, because I know that research has already been kind of done. But I hope for more people to find out about that research and to help those with dyslexia to feel better about themselves, and also to show to the rest of society what we can achieve. I hope to talk more about my goals and all that kind of thing on Thursday. But I've got so many goals on Thursday. I hope I don't take on too much. If I don't do it on this Thursday, I'll do it another time. Just not trying to do everything all at once, and then feel disappointed in myself or whatever. But moving on, number 13 is what some of the troubles dyslexics face. Also, I'd love for us to use our dyslexic creativity and imagination, creativity, ideas, and that kind of thing to talk about like terrifying tales, i.e. scary stories and things like that. Again, given my use of alliterations, I think like terrifying tales by dyslexics on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and during Halloween and like Friday the 13th and that kind of thing. Whenever that next is or whatever, each Friday the 13th, and on Halloween as well, each Halloween each year, which obviously falls once a year. Friday the 13th sometimes probably falls several times a year or whatever, but I've got a real bad problem with my right eye as well. I hope that's nothing to be too serious. Maybe it's because I spend too much screen time. I'm hoping that's what it is. So that pain, like, it feels like both of them are a bit sore, but yeah, I'm a little bit worried about them, but hopefully they'll be all right. The pain keeps coming and going, but hopefully it'll be cleared by tomorrow, I hope. Otherwise, I probably should try and see a doctor about it. I keep getting these problems with my eyes. But again, probably spend too much screen time. I don't wear my glasses as well, which probably doesn't help. I'm a bit short-sighted. I probably should wear my glasses, but and look away from the screen. But yeah, if you see me look away from the screen, it's probably just trying to rest my eyes sometimes. But anyway, sorry. Don't know if I should include that in point number 13 because I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, I given my use of alliterations, but it reminds me, I almost forgot to say, of like when I talk about dyslexic strengths and they say MIND strengths, mind strengths, or MIND for the acronym, and N stands for narrative reasoning, which apparently is like storytelling and that kind of thing. So using our storytelling to tell terrifying tales. I suppose a tale is another word for a story, I guess. But yeah, some of the troubles we face as well. And again, I pretty much always say, from a selfish point of view, I'd love to see what we could do to benefit Italian football teams, including Inter Milan and Roma, Torino, Inter Milan, Torino, Roma, and other Italian teams. Moving on, number 14, troubleshooting, and again, I'm using my alliterations, so I just mean problem solving, shooting down troubles. So addressing the issues we face and how to solve them. Dyslexic entrepreneur Simon Squibb says that if you think about a pain you have in your life, a point of pain, whether that's losing someone you love or struggling at school or whatever it might be. I think there's a pain in my eyes a little bit, although thankfully they're not unbearable right now. I don't want to jinx it though, but it was quite a sharp pain when just before I got up as well in the morning or afternoon or whatever it was. I think I woke up fairly early today for once, by my standards. But anyway, when you think of a pain point in life, something that hurt you in some way psychologically or whatever, it might not be too good to think about, but your moment of pain, your worst days push you to achieve things. But yeah, maybe we can think of the struggles we face, like Christian Bohr, who found his dyslexia, a font for dyslexic, which I mentioned yesterday, I believe, and that kind of thing for dyslexics. But we could even design things for other people as well. Basically thinking of problems in the world that we want to solve. Again, Simon Squibb says about solving problems. Robert Kiyosaki, who may be dyslexic, apparently his teachers said he's dyslexic, but he doesn't like labels, although he calls himself a capitalist. But I thought making videos where I asked, like, is Robert Kiyosaki dyslexic? Because he says he struggles with spelling and that kind of thing. And I'm sure he's clearly not lazy. He's running a good business, supposedly successful business or whatever. I know money isn't everything, as I say, or the only form of success, hence I say success, however you define it. But yeah, it's basically all that to say, to solve problems, or I call it troubleshooting, on Tuesdays and Thursdays due to my use of alliterations, which to me means the same thing, but maybe I'm using the term a bit erroneously, i.e. wrongly. But anyway, moving on with 15, I dream that we'll support each other's goals. I hope I can convince my fellow dyslexics, and maybe even disabled people generally, but especially dyspraxics, dysgraphics, and dyscalculics, as well as dyslexics, the Ds, as they say, as some people say. I hope I can convince them to support my goals as much as possible, and I hope in return it would only be fair, obviously, to support theirs as well, more generally. I'd love for us to support each other's projects generally, whether that's YouTube channels, TikTok, businesses like Virgin Enterprise or Dash Water, I think it's called, or whatever. I thought of an idea for, like, I suppose I'm an ideas person, but putting it into practice is not as easy. Obviously, it's easier said than done, as I say. But I thought of an idea for, like, what if they could make something that tastes like Coke, that tastes nice. I find Coke quite tasty, and ideally I'd love to drink Pepsi, Coke, tea, hot chocolate, Fanta, and other fizzy drinks, and all the good tasty stuff, all the nicer things, finer things. But other than that, are not very good for me. Well, probably mentally and certainly physically, health-wise, basically. But yeah, what if it could taste like that? What if it could taste really nice, but have the good health benefits of water? I said that to one of my uncles. I asked him, and he said something about water is natural, whereas Coke isn't. But if they could get some sort of balance. But at the same time, I think, like, if you look at artificial intelligence, could they make it look real? You could even be looking at artificial intelligence right now and not realise. I wish I was that smart, but yeah, I probably seem a bit robotic sometimes, especially when I type or whatever. But even though I love writing and typing, I'm not very good at it, but unfortunately. But yeah, that's one idea I thought of, and I can't remember. There was another one I thought of that I thought I could share. Oh yeah, I was going to say about my philosophies on business in point 11, but I forgot. But moving on, number 16, if we could have think tanks on what are the best ways to support dyslexics, especially in business, and look at how we can be empowered financially, emotionally, spiritually, health-wise, or whatever in life, empowered to achieve our full potential, and hopefully be happy, healthy, joyous, and as free as living things can be, and that kind of thing. So hopefully being a part of a network, we can have each other's back and support each other. I often say that what I've been saying recently, if you rip each other off, then you might get away with it in the short term, or it might be good in the long term. In the short term, but in the longer term, it'll probably go a bit wrong. So I hope we can build together. Although I'm not the most patient, it's like some people say with compound interest. They say, "Would you take £1 million now, or would you take 100 million when you turn 60?" And if I was thinking just of myself, funny enough, it depends. Depending on how much I believe in myself as well. If I believed in myself a lot, I'd probably rather take 1 million and believe I could turn it into 1 billion by investing it shrewdly or whatever. If I was more materialistic, I'd just go and buy loads of stuff and that kind of thing. But I think, am I really going to be in a position, even if I live that long, am I going to be in a position to enjoy it when I get to 60? Whereas I know if I had 1 million, I could say I don't need to worry about money right now. So I sort of am a bit short-termist, and I don't have much patience, or any patience really, but pretty much. But if patience is a virtue, it's certainly one I don't possess. But yeah, I'd love for a think tank to come together and say, what are the best ways we can trust each other, network together, and do what's best for dyslexics all over the world, from the richest countries in the world to the poorest, like basically in every possible country, to empower dyslexics. That's on YouTube, TikTok, entrepreneurship, whatever it might be. What are the best ways to empower us, to help us to run businesses, to invest, and to network, and to encourage each other, and to listen to each other's goals and dreams, and help each other to plan things, set goals, organise our days better, and whatnot, and that kind of thing. So yeah, what are the best ways to empower dyslexics? And again, there's other groups I talk about as well. And how can we support disabled people, for instance? Number 17. I am someone with quite a lot of ideas, but I'm not very good at putting them into practice, as I said before. Like, I've often thought, like, sort of copying Walmart and McDonald's, but I sort of think it's that I'm the only one who thought about it. In the past, I used to think I'm the only one who thought like that, but obviously Walmart are the first to say it. I'm actually just copying what Sam Walton said, which is the customer is the only boss. And as McDonald's say, if you look after the customer, the profits will look after themselves. I know people might argue they're not giving the most healthy food, if I'm honest, but yeah, if you give the customer what they want, I think it's really good, and can help your business to grow. I mean, I saw one about black entrepreneurs, and I'm focusing on dyslexics, but as an example, this black woman who runs a business in America, this African American woman, was saying that if people want, she seemed to have an attitude, and I think it's good to have confidence in business, but she seemed to have a bit of an attitude where she said, if people want to complain to the manager, guess who they're going to talk to? And I was thinking her business probably won't last very long. Maybe I could be wrong, of course. Stranger things happen. Barton says no. Based on everything on the premise, I could be wrong. But I think if you don't look after the customer, I think obviously if your customer says they're going to go somewhere else, you've got no business. It's like people call it, if I'm honest, I can be very secretive with these ideas, but I think like, obviously now I'm bearing my soul and sharing my ideas. But in the past, I used to want to jealously guard these ideas, if you like, and only share them with certain people, if anyone. But I think of like, people say it's self-employed. I call it working for the customer, which makes you have to sort of humble yourself to think like, you might think you're this big shot with loads of ideas, but if your customer doesn't buy, and great products or even whatever, but if your customer doesn't want to buy your products, then it's no good really. So I call it being employed by the customer rather than self. So if you take self out, like instead of paying yourself, you're paid by the customer. Instead of being employed by yourself, self-employed, you're employed by the customer, the customers, and that kind of thing. And one of the things I wanted to do with bringing together people who have something in common with me, which I'm going to say actually in part 3. But yeah, dyslexics would be included in that. But I some people might say as well, using your imagination, as Damon John, a fellow dyslexic, said, all you're doing is making a different story, creating a different story, or a different tale, shall we say, Tale Tuesday. What's the difference between a story and a tale? I wouldn't know, please don't know if you know the difference. But yeah, going back to what this black woman said about this African American woman saying about like she's the boss of the company, I think that's a way to stay small as well. Like if you can work with other people and trust other people, know who you can trust, And I think employment and networking are really important. Like, who do you employ? Who do you trust? How do you hire the best staff that you can trust? How do you? Not that I'm an expert, but to me it makes sense. Like, obviously, I've never run a business, to be honest, but I'm not going to tell anyone about my top secret business, being a secret billionaire. But on a serious note, I'll say I'm an ideas person, but putting it into practice is unfortunately for me the thing that I was missing. But now I'm into the philanthropy and that kind of thing. So this is about empowering other dyslexics, really, as well as myself. But moving on, number 18, as I said before, like about, as I mentioned, like dyslexic inventors and their inventions and how they change the world, and dyslexic businesses and how they change the world. And I love to see what dyslexics have contributed to the world more generally as well, which is something I'll probably talk about quite a lot this month, hopefully, all being well, if I get the opportunity, God willing, and Godspeed. If the chances and opportunities arise. So what we've contributed to the world in the past, and again, hopefully with momentum, that will help us in the future. So again, I hope to encourage dyslexics to be more confident. I was going to say confidence. To have more confidence and be more confident in ourselves. Number 19, I'd love to see how dyslexics can be supported to be involved in tech, including AI, app development, software development, AI, and all different forms of tech, basically to get dyslexics into tech. And number 20, to empower dyslexics of all different ages. And again, I'd love to know what you think and how you would empower dyslexics of all different ages, especially younger ones, because I think they are the future, basically. And I suppose it's like a tree. If you plant it and help it to nourish and encourage it to grow, I don't know if you can encourage it, but let's say a plant, if you water it or whatever, and you look after it, it will grow a lot better. A lot more better. Some of the issues I have with like culture, tradition, or even like religion, where it says like spare the rod, spoil the child, respect your elders, and all that kind of thing, I really struggle with that. But I'm a great believer in like leading by example if you can. Like, if you always obey the law, hopefully younger people will look at you and say, yeah, that's a good way to be. If you go to work, have a good work ethic. That's a swear word to me, I know, if I'm honest, but if you do all that kind of stuff, you can inspire the younger generations. So I suppose a simple way of putting it is leading by example. But as ever, I'd love to know what you think. But yeah, something I was recently thinking while I was having my dinner, trying to think about this. I wasn't going to include it in the video, but I think I will. Obviously, I'm doing it now. But I was wondering, maybe not everyone's heard of this, but in Britain we have something, a metaphorical room, if that's the right word, an imaginary room, basically, where it's like they call it room 101, and they say things that you would get rid of. Sometimes celebrities talk about things they would get rid of, like 3 things they would get rid of or whatever. I don't know if they have that in America or in other countries, but it's just metaphorical, basically, hypothetical or whatever. That's probably a better word. But anyway, I was wondering if I would put into room 101, as say, things that would get rid of completely. The saying like, excuse me, I'm older than you, or merely and simply, I'm older than you, or respect your elders, all that kind of stuff. I wonder if I would get rid of that completely or limit it, because I kind of like thinking contrarianly and like challenging the status quo. So if it was got rid of, I guess I wouldn't have that challenge. But a part of me would love to get rid of it completely, and a part of me would love to just challenge it and maybe even tear it apart and win the argument. But anyway, I am out, and peace and love.